Welcome back to the Near Future podcast. Today we have our first ever guest, Avi Ashkenazi. Avi is a long-time design leader and builder who's worked at companies like Shopify and now Deel, where he focuses on fintech, AI, design systems, and more. Jonny and I recently saw him speak at Product Unleashed, an AI and design event in London, and spoke to him afterwards about building software with AI to scale how he and his team operates. We're really excited for this conversation and hope you enjoy it too.
Hi, my name is Avi. I'm a senior product design director at Deel. I work across fintech, AI, design systems, our mobile areas, and our homepage. I live in London, and I've been doing this for maybe 16 years, 17 years, something like that. I've been working on a really, really interesting tool that is called Vidit. And it does what it says. It allows you to vid videos. And the reason why I built it was because A, we pay at Deel quite a lot of money historically for Loom, and B, because a lot of the designers, and there are 130 designers at Deel, plus marketing people, wanted Screen Studio. And Screen Studio cost some money, but the company did not want to pay that amount of money. And I really like Screen Studio, but I was like, I can do something like it, something maybe better with all the features that I always dreamed. And I'm looking at the roadmap all the time, hoping that they would build the thing that I wish they would build. So I basically decided to embark on this journey and build a Mac app. And that's essentially what I built. Over here, you can record different things. You can record a screen, a window, you can record a device, or import a film to dub over it. You have the different microphones, etc. And you can go between edit mode and instance mode. So I'll go and record this window, and I can choose whatever window I want. Let's choose this one. And as I record it, I have a countdown, and I can see the specific interaction. So I can play with it. You can see the different animations over here that the AI is doing for this. I can look at a bigger emoji, etc. And I can also go and draw on screen whatever I need to do. Once I finish doing that, when I hit stop, I'm just going to have a full editor mode that is coming. So if we go over here, I can go and look at the timeline. I have events across the board of everything from the cursor interaction to zoom in as we need to. I can change the way the camera looks like, the different layouts in between that I want. And I can even transition between those layouts. And again, like this is something that the team has asked for and wanted. Maybe we do this one. And it's something that is really, really important. And now everyone in the team are using it. See the specific interactions. Do this. It's not going to do that in the render. Part of the examples of vibe coding stuff. And you can have the transcripts, so you can actually like go in here and edit it like this script. So I can just go here, boom, delete this thing, and you can see it basically made the edit. I have different things from incorporating captions. I'll turn them on, to changing the font that we want for those captions, and even like, getting a preview of how might that font look like, etc. So that's more or less Vidit in a nutshell.
This is quite a complex product that you've built, Avi. This isn't, a sort of a quick tool to nail an easing graph or whatever it is. This looks fairly. I mean, for those people listening, we basically looked at something that looks very much like Screen Studio. It's like a beautiful dark UI with. I mean, it looks like Screen Studio, but with more stuff. I'm a Screen Studio user, and I see features there that I don't have, and I want them. You built this for Deel directly? Like, is this a Deel only thing, or are there other users outside Deel?
That's a really good, interesting story. So one of the magics about working in enterprise is that once you enter into enterprise, you cannot exit the enterprise. Meaning, because I have this captive audience and I built this tool and that's the only tool that is available, I essentially don't have competition, which ended up in me having 600 daily users of this tool, recording and producing videos. I think so far about 10,000 videos were already produced with this tool. And it's kind of like my weekend project. Every weekend I go and I sit there and keep vibe coding my life away and produce. So for example, this weekend I added touch gestures. So when when you do like pinch on an iPhone or zoom in or scroll, today when you plug in the phone to your computer and you record it, you don't have those visuals. And now in Vidit, you are able to basically add them on screen, and people can see where you swipe from where to where you pinch, etc. Now, you mentioned this is only like in the internal environment. However, when I started testing it, I basically utilized my own Apple account because I wanted my friends to try it out and give me feedback before it's a very high stake to say to the company, you guys all use this from now on.
Yeah.
So I already had like external users, and over time I convinced Alex, the CEO, to basically do what Lottie was done with Airbnb. The engineers who built Lottie were like, this could really change the internet. It helps us. It can help other people. So we will open source it. In my case, we're not open sourcing it because I don't know how I can control the fact that no one's going to put a shell on top of it and start selling it. And I do want to give it for free. I want to contribute it to the community. So I agreed with Alex that we're going to give it for free for anyone. So if you go to viddit.video, you will be able to download it. The website is still in the making, but there is a download link there. You can go and download it now. And anyone who wants to use it can use it for free.
Awesome. But I suppose having the captive audience, you get tons of feedback. But also they can literally never leave. So you sort of don't have to worry about one whole part of the product stress, which is churn. I mean, in a sense.
Well, you do have some. So, for example, I'll give you one of the features that I added was it was called instant mode. What happened was I got annoyed because I built this thing and spent a lot of my blood, sweat, and tears. I got annoyed that people keep recording stuff on Slack, and then someone provides feedback on a design, and people are like very obsessive about their feedback. So you have suddenly like 5 videos of 5 minutes, one after the other in Slack. And I'm like, why are you not using Vidit? And they're like, look, less friction. It is there. I press the button and I don't need to render or edit it or like tweak anything. So I made instant mode, which basically means it's recording everything live. You can preset the environment. You can say, hey, my camera is going to be a circle. It's going to be in this corner. The screen is going to be like this. The background is going to be like that. And then when you finish recording, you can just drop it into Slack, like when you record in Slack. And that brought me some other additional percentage of users.
Okay.
Amazing. And you mentioned about the sort of starting point of this being 130 people across Deel who wanted to use this tool that you decided to build your own version of. I'm curious how this has changed your ways of working within the company or the team. You kind of hinted there at using Slack for design reviews, or you may be using this tool instead. How have you not only built this tool, but how has this changed your ways of working as a team and your role as a leader in that team?
I think, first of all, it allowed me to be way closer to designers. And from my perspective, one of the good, amazing things about tools like this is that they enable you to share stuff in such a high fidelity and such quality that suddenly you have a marketing video-like output at your fingertips. Maybe it's an overkill. For some people, it's an overkill. And I get, like, in the feedback channel, many, many questions quite often that is like, hey, can I do this? And it's like, yeah, actually, you can do this. It already is built. And that, that tells me, the UX is maybe discoverability is not good enough, et cetera, et cetera. But it also gave me and the team a lot of confidence to say, hey, we can go and build these amazing AI tools. And I know you guys are doing this brilliant workshop that I also witnessed in the event that we were in 2 weeks ago. And it gave people much more confidence to just go and try out. Because before, people thought, I can just make like a small Figma plugin, or I can summarize my review in terms of text. And that suddenly shows them, okay, a person who is very, very busy can go and, alongside do this thing, then we can do it as well. It gave them a lot of confidence to build stuff.
Avi, it might be useful context for people listening to describe what Deel is like to work at. And I think it's quite a unique culture in terms of the attitude towards build versus buy and AI generally and things like that. There is one anecdote that I know you've shared a couple of times, including on stage, around Figma seats. So can you just give us a little bit of maybe the design lens, but also just generally how Deel works company-wide?
Yeah, Deel is trying to reduce as much as possible politics or anything like that. Deel thrives on speed, which basically means that a lot of things bubble up from the bottom. Now, of course, this could be some projects where senior stakeholder will be involved, but gradually, but overall, I would say that if you have an idea, just go and do it, because there's not enough people to do all the ideas and not enough people to do even the projects that already are scoped, that anyone is welcome with any additional initiative that they have to just go and contribute. As I mentioned, the design team is about 130 people across the board, and we have this AI process that enabled us in one click basically to onboard people all the way from setting up their Amazon permissions to, set up their repo database inside GitHub, and then install the Claude skills that they need and connect it to the design system, essentially. So one click button, you can basically go and prototype anything that you want, Claude Design, Claude Code, whichever tool that you feel like, VS Code, Cursor, whatever tool that you feel like. And we also have a hosting environment internally called Nexus, which is kind of like our own version of Vercel, that anyone can ship projects there and has many interesting features. That was built in 2 weeks by 2 DevOps engineers, and now has been maintained in the last 2 months. It was pretty awful at the beginning, and now it's fantastic.
Do they get some design feedback?
It got some design feedback, but not enough, I would say. Because that's one of the problems, I guess, like when people build AI, like sometimes it's kind of like there's like a small ego aspect there that you kind of like, but I built all this thing. I don't need help. I don't want people to slow me down. I just want to go and churn and do as much as I can, as fast as I can. Now, we got to a point where at the beginning people were freaking out, especially when Anthropic released Claude Design. People were like, we cannot keep up. The pace is too fast. We don't know what to do. And so we organized like twice a week meetings with designers that are great at AI or that have achieved something at AI that others haven't, to do this cross-pollination and teach. And we got to a point where at this point of time, at the beginning of July, I got a few messages from designers like, hey, I lost my Figma license. Can you renew me? And the reason why they lost it is because they practically have not used it for 30 days. And we have an automation that if someone doesn't use it for 30 days, we obviously don't want to pay for it. So we clear the seat from that person for someone else who might want to use, or to basically not pay at the end of the quarter.
So you had a bunch of designers that turned out hadn't opened Figma for 30 days.
Yeah, 15 of them by now.
15 of 130 is a under 10%, but it's, or around 10%, but it's still significant when you think about a tool that has been at the very center of everyone's process for many years. That and precursors to it, a decade or more. So really interesting. So these designers that are not opening Figma, they are opening their code editor. Is that right?
Yeah, they're just vibe coding. And I would say that also, look, a lot of the designers, I've been reading about it also from other people's posts, the usage for Figma has slightly changed in terms of like what people do. There's some stuff that you just can't do. Like if you want to create an icon, you might prompt it, but it's not going to be great. So you'll just go and like do some vector tooling and pen tool and like move some points. That's some of the designers. That's what their usage in Figma is nowadays. For the whole interface, they just do Claude Code and for really, really small things. So I think there is like an interesting opportunity to make something that would replace just these like small little processes of visual refinement and fidelity. And then they might not need even Figma in that version. I'd
love your opinion as you've been leading design teams for a long time and seen design teams outside Deel as well. how deal specific this behavior is versus what a prediction might be of where the design industry might end up tooling itself over the next, say, 12, 18, 24 months. Like, is this heading towards everyone's vibe coding, or is this actually just something that deals a bit mad and really early, or somewhere in between?
I think it's somewhere in between. Like, it's also hard for me, for example, to contrast Shopify to Deel, because when I was at Shopify, we were at like 4.5, 4.6 in terms of Opus, right? And now we have like way more advanced, sophisticated models. So it does get better. And Anthropic seems to be, unlike OpenAI, willing to go into any territory and kind of like start battling against Figma. And, you know, Dylan was also asked about, the CEO of Figma was asked about it in an interview, don't remember with who, but he was like, yeah, relationship is complicated. Because again, they're kind of like coming for their cake. Like, you know, it was a very interesting thing. Like, he was, hey, we're opening MCP, so you can bring your Figma design, and then now you can take it back, but we want you to stay. So, and then we suddenly made like Claude Design, so you can stay, right? So, and I think like that Claude Design was better at anyone else at digesting the design system and bringing bearable results with it. So I think Deel is ahead, definitely. I can't tell exactly what's happening right now. There's a lot of companies that are quite advanced, I believe, as us, like Shopify, Ramp, for example, potentially Fin as well. I think there's like it's an interesting journey there, together with all those aspects of design system and generative UI to react rather than you planning everything in advance. There's a lot of really, really interesting avenues there to explore, in my opinion.
Can I ask one more tactical question? Zooming in on those 15 people who had their Figma seats revoked, what is the mood like when these designers come to you requesting a seat? Is it like what, this is ludicrous, why is this happening? Or is there an openness to maybe if you are the sort of designer who is just needing Figma for the icon level refinement, like, is there a real possibility that these designers will go off and build their own tools for the specific use cases they're solving for? Like, give us a flavor of that sort of spectrum that you're seeing.
I think they're all very surprised that it happened. Of course, you know, they take it for granted that they will have it, and maybe in the future, you know, based on usage and what we're seeing, maybe it's not going to be for granted that everyone's going to have Figma seats. But also you have the other side of the equation, which is token maxing and token budget and those type of things. Designers, like, literally in Slack are relieved when the 1st of July comes. Like, I burned all my tokens. I'm waiting for like tomorrow at 3 a.m. I know the time. Like an addict, I know the time that this thing is open. I'm on like 98% of my, and I'm in a group that is called super users, which has way more budget than the normal users.
Wow. That's fascinating. And is that across within design or across the whole company, the super users bucket?
It's across the whole company. There's 100 of those. I think there are 4 people from design in those 100. The company is 7,200 people.
Wow.
Avi, you mentioned four of your design team, including you, are the sort of token maxers, the super users. Can you describe like a sort of an adoption curve across the team? And are there people that are still unsure? And how are you thinking about, you know, as much as you can say, how are you thinking about how to either help those people to come on board, or actually that it's okay for some people to be like that and there's work for them to do as well? Like, how are you thinking about that?
Look, I think there are still people that for them it's way faster to go straight to Figma, and they produce better results faster. And I think that there still is room for Figma from a collaboration perspective, and primarily that, because like the workflow for code is very uncollaborative. It's like you submit the PR, someone reviews the PR, someone pulls the PR. Yeah. It's not natural. It's not easy. Although I have seen, you know, if you think of like OpenAI group chats where you can incorporate, or like Claude agents inside Slack, you suddenly have this world of collaboration. how can they bring this thing into the world of design, or who can be the first to bring this thing into the world of design. It's going to be really, really, really interesting. In terms of distribution, I would say that definitely 80% of the designers are on Claude Design, on Claude Code, doing this. Some of them are utilizing it as this is the high fit. Maybe like 40% of them, maybe 30% of them utilizes it as this is my platform to make this super high end result that I can sell to, or like user research with, or sell to stakeholders, etc. The other ones are using it the completely other way and are like, this is an artifact that would allow me to align with the PM and engineer that this is the actual flow that I need to do. Then I'm going to take it to Figma and I'm going to make it like polished and bring it the way it needs to be brought into them implementing it. So you have like quite an interesting skew between them. And of course, and then there's like 20% who are not, are worried, are not kind of like getting on board with this thing. And I think they're struggling more and more because people are getting way faster across the board. But I think that they have a really nice support system to try to help them gain that knowledge. And they have lots of really, really good examples of what good looks like.
Yeah.
And could you give specific examples of that? Is that through the team around them, or are there specific examples of resources that you've built or the team has built to help people on board?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we have like twice a week sessions with that showcase like different implementations of what designers, and the designers are running it for themselves. It's not that, I come or like anyone from leadership comes and does this. You have like some designers who are way more advanced at this thing, and they kind of like how I shipped feature X into production, and they show that workflow. Or how did I optimize AI agents to do research more fast with Akai, which is our agent platform. And this is also like, for example, there's a designer called Mariana. She's in Brazil. She worked on this with Akai on a project to optimize research funnels. So if you think of what you need to do for research, you have some target audience in mind. Hey, I want to talk to people that have contractors in Argentina and Algeria, for example, and the company is 200 people. Great. How do I find them? Yes, you can maybe search. So like Akai would go search for that, and then you would find 20 companies like that. Okay, now we need to organize the user research. Great. Akai would set a budget of how much do we need to pay them. It will go and talk to the CSMs, so the customer success people that are usually talking to them, and ask them to ask for a meeting, and would also chase them in Slack until they book that meeting with the client, which is easier than just sending like a cold email, right? And then when time to book the meeting, it would look at the calendars and basically suggest the times that you should book. And then you just come and do a session.
How do the CSMs feel about being told to do stuff by an AI?
They're okay. I think at this point of time, they're being told so much to do stuff by AI that they're totally used to it.
Wild.
Just slightly changing gears. I think you've given us a few examples so far of building software and tools or workflows to help automate or improve ways of working and processes. I'm curious about how you think about trying to replicate your own judgment or scale your own judgment and taste versus which bits you're trying to keep deliberately manual and deliberately human, if there are any.
Yeah, I don't have like the best definitive. I think like very much, if you look in the world of AI, memory is one of the things that is being talked about. I'm not talking about memory like RAM and stuff. I'm talking about like how to manage memory, how to optimize memory. If you think about it, the whole art of storytelling is for us to remember something, how we write blog posts, how we write books, etc. It's all anchored at that. But memory of an AI is different, and memory of you is different. So there's two projects that a couple of people are working on, and one of them is called Links. It's also an internal product that I built. Again, same reason, people wanted Obsidian or Logseq or Rome Research or Notion, and we couldn't. They couldn't use it. It's not approved. So I basically built our own version of Obsidian. I cannot show it here because I have it on my work computer. But this tool started as just implementing and mimicking Obsidian style. You have the knowledge graph, you have links that between subjects that links to each other. You have different types of primitives like a person, a project, a product, a vertical, a decision, an idea, etc. And I initially started it with like a Claude Code skill that goes and looks through all my meetings and summarizes it based on those things. Then I ended up building an MCP to Claude so it could feed and read it in a more coherent way, in addition to my personal notes. And now it's all about trying to manage a brain. And then a different project that I'm also working on, which is our Jira replacement to some extent, or Monday.com replacement, which is called Launchpad. And in that world, you need a brain per vertical or per team. And it's different from your brain because a brain per team is reading the Slack channels of that individual team. And it's not your opinion. It's kind of the holistic opinion. Even if someone onboards the team or someone wants to ask or know a thing about the team, that surface should have all the jobs to be done and all the metrics and the decisions that were made and what the impact was done based on those decisions. So building those brains is definitely like an adventure that I have been on in the last couple of months, reading Andrei Karpathy's comments, and no one has figured it out. There's many ways, and it's really hard to make sure that it's not going to be a thing that people just forget and not use. It's really hard to make people maintain it, and it's also hard to make it maintain itself automatically and keep the most up-to-date content and keep it healthy in a way that is queryable.
People want all of these tools and these capabilities, but then you give them to them and it's like adds to the chaos, the seeming chaos in 2025, 26 of I'm meant to know all of this stuff suddenly, and the tool, as you say, the tools are moving too fast. I can't keep up with it all. Now I have a brain. What's a brain? Now I have to actually do more work. Feels like more work, not less work, even though it's an efficiency and there's a new capability that you've given me. And I remember running my last company and trying to work out how to affect change internally within our customer, as we rolled out to clients, and working with internal HR teams on change management and like, how do you fire people up around this thing that they now have, which is really good for them and it's going to help, but they've got so much else on their plate. The actual work is so important that how do you sort of make space for that? I'm just interested in, is there anything you've done? Like, candidly, like, is there stuff that you're like, this is amazing, everyone's going to love it, and then it fell flat? And it sounds like the video tool has done pretty well because there was just such like this latent demand for it. But are there other things that you've been like, it's a bit of a damp squib?
Yeah, I think. Look, I think Links, the kind of our version of Obsidian, hasn't taken off yet. Like, I don't have product market fit, even though it's the only tool there. And I think a lot of it is because, am I working for the AI, or does the AI work for me? And with a tool like this, it slightly feels, and that's why I'm working on these brain optimizations, because I want to make sure it feels more like AI is working for me and I do a little bit versus I'm just sitting there writing all the notes so the AI can read it, et cetera, et cetera. And then, add to that the aspect of, and the company is following me and kind of like, fears of like, really documenting everything. And is it, in this case, it's completely offline and it's on your computer. But even that, is potentially queryable in some jurisdictions, in some conditions, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it does sums down to, am I working for the AI or does the AI work for me? And people think of folks in warehouses in China that are doing the dishes and having tons of cameras around them and teaching the future robots of how to do your dishes and how to fold your laundry. And they don't want to be that in the work environment. And they believe that they are better than that. They probably are better than that. We just need to find like better systems that would do all these things automatically. But, if you think of alignment, and a lot of people are, in the world of design and also product, a lot of people are very tired, especially in leadership or more senior roles. They're like talking to people, politics, diplomacy, agreeing on stuff. Like, AI cannot do that stuff for you. It's very, very tiring. And like managing a brain is also like slightly like that to some extent, right? It's like, what do you choose to read? What do you write? What is your intelligence? What do you query? You cannot settle for boiling the ocean every time and asking like, look across all Google Drive and Slack channels for my answer. it's not going to give you the best answer. The best answer
Yeah.
would be based on your brain. So it's worth making the effort. But these are the things that sometimes make people tired.
Yeah, I think my question was kind of about the thing that has always existed, which is like the value to me versus the work I have to do. The value out must be there's some ratio, like 10 times, must get 10 times the value out that I put in. Otherwise, I'll ignore the thing. But I think you've just touched on the deeper and much more AI specific question, which is why am I doing this, and like who benefits in the end of all of this stuff that I'm doing. And these stories, there's that cleaning company that's set up in the US and is now in the UK as well, where you get a free clean, but the cleaner wears a hat with the cameras, and who's paying? If I'm not paying, who's paying? Turns out it's the companies that are training the robots how to replace the cleaners. So you have to sort of take an ethical stance, or you just go for a free clean. And I'm sure a lot of people go for a free clean. But if you're the one wearing the hat, that's of course going to be a consideration that gets in the way of all the cool stuff that that you can give to them. But yeah, I completely understand it for sure. Great, yeah. So, but Deel is quite AI forward, and yet, understandably, across a company of thousands and a team of over 100, there's going to be a mixture of feelings about putting all of my stuff in just for an AI to train on it.
Definitely.
Yeah, fascinating. Have you found specifically with this brain-like tool, are there use cases that you're targeting that are proving like there's more structured value in a specific area, or is it intended to be quite wide-ranging and more sort of general-purpose context?
Look, I thought at the beginning, when I made the initial pitch for this thing, I thought that just saying, hey, something is the brain is not enough. And then I thought, what else can this thing do? And then I came up to, it could save us tokens. It could save us tokens because it doesn't need to go and boil the ocean, and it's like a llama that filters what you need to do and aims you at the right place at the right time. And people are not sure. Like everyone that I talk to, they're not sure. So I don't know yet if that's actually like the value that a thing like this would bring. I still think maybe, but it's hard to tell. And like, how much do you save locally, and how is it manageable? When does it stop being manageable? It's a really interesting user experience question that you need, and technical question as well. And do people really care about this thing? Maybe today, no, maybe later, it's going to be like a great setup for the future where everyone is like hiking their cost for stuff. And maybe in the future, we will end up in a place where not everyone has access to AI. And only people who we know that they can actually get like really useful output out of it will have access to AI.
Yeah, interesting. I actually had a related question. Presumably, Deel are exploring open weight models and other non-Claude options. Claude, the Anthropic models are very expensive, and GLM 5.2 and all of these interesting models coming out. Is there some exploration into like choose how to use your budget? You can have a worse model and more swings at that, or anything like that.
At the moment, it's primarily Anthropic models, at least, for like the normal dealer. But that gives you the range all the way from like Sonnet 4.6 to Sonnet 5 and like Fable. But also Fable is limited to its own budget. You cannot like just like burn your whole budget. And because if you think about it, you don't want to get to a point where you burn all your Fable tokens, which basically you burned all your monthly tokens because you didn't use it appropriately. And now you're like, sorry guys, I can't do any work.
Right.
It's a problem, right? And I don't know if it's like a Deel setting or like an Anthropic setting. Maybe it's both. Hard to tell. But that's a thing that like I first burned through because I got so excited and I was like, they're gonna take it away again. Oh no! So I just went through all my Fable tokens and then was like, okay, we can go back to Opus 4.8 and see what happens there. But I believe that in the future, like there's a stat. 70% of the startups in the US are on Chinese models. Kimi, the models from Alibaba, One, etc. Now, no one says that Trump is not going to come tomorrow and say, hey, you know what? you can only use American models. I don't want this thing to kind of like leak to this. And then, amazing for the OpenAI and these guys who are lobbying very, very hard, and they can hike
Great
the prices
regulatory
even
capture.
more.
Yeah.
It could be incredible. I don't know if you will get to it, but they did it with cars. They haven't done it with products, but they did it with cars. So, or maybe they just slap a tax on it, and then it becomes the same price. So you don't know what's going to happen there, and I think it's definitely an area to watch and see where it goes.
Let's talk about human-to-human interaction with AI in some part of that loop, and I guess there's two things I wanted to set the scene with for this. The first is you posted on LinkedIn about training an AI model or a tool to review designer portfolios to help with the hiring process and help you screen candidates and level them at the start of the process, which I think is a very compelling challenge for a hiring manager to solve for. I'm curious to ask you some questions about that in a moment. But then you also mentioned a thread recently about AI as an enabler for human-to-human collaboration, and how AI was supposed to make collaboration seamless, but instead it has made us more isolated, talking about the loss of human friction associated with these workflows that now have you building your own tool in AI rather than collaborating with other disciplines or other people to make them happen. So I think that as a space I'm really interested to dig into a bit with you. Perhaps we could start with the hiring process aspects, and perhaps you could tell folks about the current state of designer hiring at Deel, and how AI is integrated into that process, or where you found success with AI and where you'd like to solve but maybe hasn't quite captured yet.
Look, one of the things that I've done when I joined Deel was elevate our recruiting practices and processes, introduce new interviews, provide better feedback, record videos for people who I've heard from them, from candidates that were really, really helpful, to explain what we're looking, also bring a face to it, makes it nice. And, personally, as someone who does not love just reading stuff, I prefer to listen to stuff or watch stuff. It gives you, I believe that as you create content and, someone who wants to work for you, you are creating content for them because you want to also convince them to come and work with you. It is important to have those podcasts as a part of the podcast that I'm working on, as well as videos. And I think that there's a lot of things that people don't talk about, like how do we judge portfolios? How do we, some people which are more consultants, would do these like live YouTube or like LinkedIn portfolio reviews, or like provide and give some time. I do usually, I get 4 messages a day on LinkedIn with, hey, check out my portfolio. What do you think? And obviously, sometimes I have time, but sometimes I don't have time. So the AI does help me. And if I do that with the AI, I would basically send them a screenshot of hey, I have this tool. Here's how it looks like in this tool. And I'm going to run it and walk them through what it says. The idea was we have 300 applications a day at Deel for design, right? Last year in total for Deel, there were about 3,300,000 applications across the board last year.
That's a bit more than 300. Yeah.
That's a bit more than 300 a day, but even 300 a day, times 365, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
I'm not so good at math, so I'm not going to try to attempt to answer that, but it is a lot. So, and a lot of it is, some of it is bots, some of it is this, but a lot of it is people who really try and really want feedback. And if, they just get a sorry, not for us type of email, which I feel is a bummer, and it's not going to help them improve in any way. And I wanted to put an end to this. And so this is why I started building this tool. It wasn't just the problem for me. I literally felt the problem for everyone who messaged me and kind of went the extra mile and wanted to help them. And then I was like, okay, this thing could be really, really, really powerful in multiple steps in the process. It could be really powerful when someone is applying for a staff position, and we can scan it as they paste the link and tell them, actually, you're not staff, you're senior in Deel's perspective, and this is what's missing from staff. Do you have it? If you do have it, awesome, bring it into the portfolio. We would love to look at it and, evaluate it. Or, if you think we're wrong, it's also okay, you proceed with the application anyway. And also to bring it into like an automated, if we are rejecting someone or something because it's a bot or something like that, we can provide feedback. Now, some people would say, yeah, but everyone then will improve based on what the AI is measuring. Well, okay, that's okay. Then the average goes higher and the floor goes higher and everyone gains from it, by the way. In addition to that, it's not that the AI, you just build it and leave it. It improves over time, right? Either by itself or like you adopting it based on what you're seeing, because at the end you will look at those portfolios and you will talk to those people. So everyone wins. Everyone can make a better portfolio. You will see better portfolios. The system gets better and the managers have less work.
Yeah, totally. Is this something that you have scaled across all design hiring at Deel, or is it still Avi specific?
It's still me specific, unfortunately. We have released our own ATS really recently, I think like a month ago, and we will see if we can incorporate it. But also, remember, this is very designed. Like there is a tool for that for CV checking against kind of the job requirements, but portfolio is a very design centric. Like I had to add stuff there, like specifically read Figma and specifically understand when pages have password, and if the person provided the password, you would be able to crawl through that. The ability to do OCR on images and have some sort of analysis, like visually, the text is like, sizes of text and give some understanding. So there's lots of like very design specific things that are in this tool that are just not scalable for something that is not like design hiring. But I did give the code for this thing to some of my design managers, and I can't tell for sure if they're using it because it's not like, it's still in the form of code. It's not like a product that you can kind of like deliver. But the idea is to potentially keep using it until we feel it's like the right time and then implement. I don't think it's like the top priority for the company, but for us, it's really helpful.
It's a sort of one of those like hiring brand things where you can't point to a number. It doesn't impact the bottom line directly, or at least immediately. So it has to be a sort of a passion project until it finds its correct home. But it sounds really interesting, and I've always felt whenever I've been hiring, you get stuck in the situation where you're like, I want to give you really thoughtful feedback, but I have no time to do it, and we generally don't do it because then what if they argue their case, and that gets difficult as well. So before interview stage, you are sort of stuck doing the thing that you hate, and you'd hate to receive the email that you send. But that's sort of how the process works. Even worse with now AI and so many more applications. So yeah, kudos. It'd be interesting to see if you ever manage to get it into Deel's ATS. And to be clear, for listeners who don't know Deel well, this is the ATS Deel sells to its customers, right?
Yes.
Or is this? Yeah. So this is this could be something born out of Avi's head could be deployed out to thousands of companies. Who knows? But yeah.
One more tactical question on this specific example. I'm curious if there are any takeaways you have on the ability for AI to evaluate a designer's portfolio from having built this. Are there specific attributes that are quite hard for it to evaluate or get wrong sometimes? And what are those?
I mean, look, I would say there's a couple of things that I noticed, especially at the beginning when I was building it, which is self-affirmation. So, for example, a designer would say, an expert of UX design for 16 years. That yeah, the guy's amazing. He's an expert. No, he just wrote that he's an expert. Right, so
just
one of those
believes
things
literally what they say. Yeah.
Yeah. A different thing that I think like is really, really valued, and like it's a thing that everyone, and I'm sure you guys have tested for this when you were interviewing designers. And I think like I've even heard like Jonny in like one of your previous podcasts that we were talking about this as well, is uniqueness, right? Like you want people to be unique. So the tool would look if you have used like a stock Framer template or a stock Wix template or Squarespace or anything like that, because why? Why should you do it? Let's change the color, do something, right? Like, so it would basically check if the person actually made an effort to make something a little bit different, even if it's like in the world of like Lovable or Cursor. If you use like stock, which is completely visible right now to everyone, like we all know when we see something that was created with AI that no one has tinkered with a little bit more. So watching out for this is an important, because it's lazy, and you don't want lazy people. And yes, the content controls and the storytelling, etc., but that's like one aspect. But you also don't want them to be lazy visually, especially if someone is looking for a job, it's really critical. Now, one of the hardest thing, and that's not the thing that AI can solve, is, imagine I want to hire Jonny. Jonny is not looking for a job. So Jonny does not have a portfolio, right, Jonny? I suspect you don't have a portfolio ready. Yeah. So how do I assess that? And like, that's not just, for like portfolio evaluation, right? Like he might have like, projects from like long time ago, and he's going to come and like, he will have to conform to the flow supposedly of like, needs to do a case study, needs to do these things. And no, he doesn't have it because he's so good that he doesn't need it. People just hire him because they know he's good. So how do you go around that? These are some of the challenges. So, when you source people versus when people apply to you, the bar is different, and differentiating is important.
Yeah, sourcing is so much more gut and network and just, like
references.
Yeah, which is risky as well, right? Because, someone who's set up some good references but isn't great could slip through that net. So you still have to have that level of rigor. One thing you just said, I think, is really interesting, because I think the last time I was hiring was really pre AI. Well, last time I was hiring designers was pre AI. And you could get pretty far by just having built a website. Like the fact that it existed on the internet and didn't look unusual or broken would get you some distance, and you'd made some sensible typography decisions, and the hierarchy was okay, and and now the cost of production is so cheap that actually there's a premium on having an opinion, and that opinion being or feeling fresh. Someone who I think we're going to have on the podcast, Innie, came to Tom's first mostly working morning and demoed her portfolio site, and it was like a room that you could turn the lights on and off, and it was like really exploratory and interesting and unusual, and she'd used image models in interesting ways, and that's so much more. It says so much more about the designer, even if that UI is not very useful for really any other product. They're going to go and design some B2B SaaS. It's not going to look like that, but at least it has something about it, and you've gone beyond. So, no longer can you just design linear in your portfolio and then hope that gets you over the hill. But yeah, I mean, I'm not hiring at the moment, Avi. So but it feels like a really interesting time to decide, even as a hiring team, like what your opinion is about what good is, and you can have a unique opinion as a team about what you're looking for in a much more meaningful way.
Yeah, and that's why I would say this is going to be it's going to be controversial, I believe. Like that's where, and I think like Deel would allow for this, which is good. If you hire for Google, you probably won't be able to see someone like Innie and say, you know what? I don't need anything else. I will interview her 4 times so I understand everything. And you will have to go through the process because of many, many reasons. Many by the way, very, very, very important reasons. Diversity and kind of like fairness and a lot of really important. But you cannot, no matter what you do, take like a complete bet on someone and bring them in. You just cannot do that. And a Deel, you can do that. Like I made a post long time ago that it's just like I saw someone, they failed the interview, and I was like, we're hiring this person. And basically it's a bet, and it's like to some point it sucks. Like I went and I took some of the feedback from my team, and I told them, guys, I decide. Sorry, you're wrong here. And I think like we made like there's a bunch of other people, I cannot name them, but we were wrong. We were wrong in not hiring them. And like, we had like an interview. The interviewers maybe did not do the job well, or maybe we didn't communicate the interview very well. And we lost that candidate. And now they're like principal designer somewhere. And I'm kind of like dreading it.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes it is important to just be able to have this like wild card and some credits with leadership to say, I really want to make a bet on this person. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, cool. I learned from it.
We should start wrapping. We've got some closers.
Yeah, I will pick out this question for you, Avi. So the promise of AI is to give back time. So if AI and AI agents can do the majority of your work in the background, giving you all this time, my question is, what would you spend that time on?
I think that I would, first of all, I believe that my job and the job of a director as a whole and a design leader is to identify areas. It's basically being like water. You know, you pour water to a bucket with holes. You see where there's like small holes, and you just like, I just go in the container and feel it with my hand and see where there's a hole, and I decide if I put a plaster in it or I need like a complete rework of this area to make sure that the ship is not going to sink because of this. And so I need to find 3-4 new things like this every quarter to tell Deel and make those bets and, you know, pitch them at least. And if 50% of them passed and actually went into the roadmap and is successful, and we're talking about like cross-vertical, really, really, really big things. So completely changing the direction of the company or like, you know, making a massive bet with lots of resources associated with it, then I've been successful. And if I haven't, then I have not been successful. The other thing that I need to do is unblock my team. And so if I see all my team designing with Lorem Ipsum, then I make a plugin in Figma that allows them to just like access the database and fill real information from client information into Figma, so we can actually judge the cases for real. That's like an example that happened. So I think, and same, like, you know, even with video, like, you know, they do bad storytelling. Okay, here's the best tool, you know, go and tell stories in a better way. Oh, you can't find stuff in your note. Okay, here's like a Obsidian, like all your notes are connected and you can query it with Claude Design. I think these are like optimizing the team from an operational perspective, getting them excited about what's possible and inspire them, and also making these big product bets is what you need to do. And that's what I choose to spend my time on. And then the extra time that I have fun while I watch football or whatever I watch is just like vibe coding, because, you know, you make a prompt and then you need to wait for 5, 10, maybe more minutes. So why not? Like, and you can do it I do it throughout the whole day. I do it like, I didn't do it when we were talking. But, you know, in the majority of my meetings, I will, for a second, go make another prompt and just like let it run, because it's a waste of time if I don't.
Yeah. So you're not picking up the guitar behind you, Avi, and strumming that, maybe occasionally.
Occasionally, yeah. Not enough.
I'm going to ask one. I'm not actually. It might be off menu, but Avi, I think we've had a few spicy opinions from you, or like spicy, like level of spice, like Nando's medium, maybe so far. But I'm interested. What's your spiciest take on design and AI? You know, where it's going, what's going to happen, predict the future.
I don't know if it's spicy. I will give you a non-design, okay? And then I will think about it all day and call you later and tell you.
Leave a voicemail. We can pop that in. Yeah.
Well, actually, you know what? I actually think that there was a spicy opinion that got like, you know, I think like my most commented on post on LinkedIn was like a spicy opinion, which was no one should be, at least a Deel, right? Like, or in the majority of, I would say, American tech companies, no one can be a manager without being at least a staff level designer, craft-wise. And that is because it is expected for you as a manager. No one can basically be pure strategic, pure operations, pure alignment. I know that there are organizations that are more bureaucratical and require and has room for this, but I don't believe that in the tech industry there is room for managers who are just managing anymore. That's one. And that's not I said, you know, like Brian Chesky said that, and many, many, many others. And my add to this is that a manager should at least be at a staff level. And in order to be at least staff level, it means you need to practice design regularly, like I do on my kind of side projects, and sometimes, you know, jump in and design with the designers. And especially if you would bring in new talent, if you actually want to make the bet and bring new talent, junior talent, it's even more required for you. Because if you can't teach them, then how the hell would they look up to you? And how the hell would they learn from you how to do craft? It's not like AI is not going to teach them how to do craft, because AI does not know how to do craft, regardless of all the 7 million new generative AI design systems that are coming.
Amen. Tom, we've got to keep practicing.
Oh yeah, yes, we do. I'm curious, sort of a slight evolution of that last question, but what's a belief about AI and craft that you held a year ago that you've changed your mind on? Or is there anything you've changed your mind on in the last year based on the learnings and explorations you've been doing with AI?
I think historically there was always the people with a hammer always looked for a nail, right? And I think that it's happening also with AI. I think where AI interjected and kind of like ruined some of that metaphor is with process, because now you cannot really create process with AI. I mean, you can, but it basically compresses the process to a point where it's not really a process. So process is no longer important. So you can't talk about process in the context of AI, really, which is interesting. And the areas where you can, which is kind of more akin to what I was talking about with brain, are so unknown and unclear, and by the way, so nerdy that the normal person does not know enough to talk about them. The thing that has changed, I guess, like in the last year, is that everyone is able to get to such good high level, I would say, content and sound like they know what they're talking about. And, you know, in the past, I believed everything that I read or more in the form of that, if it sounds convincing. And now I believe almost like nothing, which is really hard because it's a lot of cognitive load to distrust everything and want to check everything. But that's the world that we're living in.
Yeah. Avi, I think we should wrap. Thank you so much for being our first ever guest. What are the links that you'd like to drop in the show notes? Is there anything that you want to shout out?
Yeah, we can drop viddit.video. We can drop superavi.com and Deel.com/careers.
You're a good follow on LinkedIn, I feel like, as well. You've got some good spicy takes there.
I am trying, yes. Hopefully.
Yes.
And I am, like, you know, if I could share every day, like, what's happening inside, and there's lots of really, really, really interesting things that we do. I can't every day, but I am trying, you know, every week or two to, you know, bring some video from the internals and showcase.
Absolutely.
Amazing. I feel like we only just scratched the surface, but thank you so much for your time, Avi. It was great chatting with you. Great to have you here, and we'll wrap up there. Hope you enjoyed our chat with Avi. If you have any feedback on the podcast, good or bad, please drop us a note at podcast@nearfuture.works. We'd love to hear it. Oh, and one final thing. Last week we announced a new workshop we're opening up to individuals to build your own design tools on the 13th of August. Find out more and grab your spot over at nearfuture.works/build. Catch you next week.